Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Global News Review. My name is Ola. I'm the founder of the Morning with Club. And basically, these sessions are strictly 15-minute sessions where we talk about global, African, and Nigerian news that could affect your pockets and how to position yourself. If this is your first time or if you are just listening in live, I would like you to drop your name in the chat and see where you're listening in from. I really want to connect with you. So today's session, we'll be talking about very interesting things. Of course, the world, as we know it, is always in constant state of change, and new things are popping up every day. So we'll just start with the global news. The global news. On global news side, we talked last week about the U.S. Saudi Arabia petrodollar contract and how Saudi Arabia was not renewing. We'll put a link to that session at the end of this so you can actually listen to. It was quite educative. Now, this week, what's interesting is that um, there was some news coming out of Saudi Arabia that they're actually working on a security deal with the US. Now, what's the backstory? Last week, we talked about it and the fact that that petrodollar deal and not signing it was probably a bargaining chip that they would use to get a better deal with the United States. And here we are 1 week after, and we are hearing that they are currently in the works to sign a security deal that would be of benefit to both parties, right? Now, what are the things to highlight there? Why is this important? Number one thing we need to note is that every country, number one, is required to use what they have to get what they need. That's one. Number two, we also need to understand that every country is required to defend its own national territory. When I say national territory, I mean both in terms of the physical borders and the economic borders. Now, if you remember when we talked about US putting additional tariffs or 100% tariffs of some goods imported from China just to defend their local manufacturers, it's just them defending their economic security. Now, why is this important? Because here we are, we find that Saudi Arabia, who is supposed to be a BRICS nation. If you don't know what a BRICS nation, Google it. If you don't know what a BRICS nation is, then please Google it. Very important to know because things are changing. And Saudi Arabia, that is a BRICS nation, is currently signing a pact with the United States, about to sign a pact with the United States that is going to put a break on an existing arrangement with China, right? So last week talked about the fact that the world was moving, things were changing. But here we are seeing that what's really happening is that everybody's fighting for what they need and trying to make a space in the world for themselves, right? And it's actually interesting to note from the Saudi Arabia part, the benefit for them is increased security arrangements or a fantastic security deal basically with the United States. Of course, for the United States is this being sure of or trying to reinforce themselves as an economic power. Now, you might say it's contradictory. Why is Saudi Arabia doing this with the United States when they are in bed with the BRICS nations? The fact is this: everybody needs to defend their own national security from a physical and from an economic state right now. So think about it, right? Own it. Just know that every time you see any of these things, it's a deal waiting to happen. And it's actually quite interesting that we just talked about it last week, and this news is coming out this week so quickly to show that yes, people are really negotiating to move themselves forward. Now, the next news out of the global world as we know it is NVIDIA. NVIDIA is now the world's most valuable company. Now, NVIDIA is one of those, like if you think about it, just their position is more like soldier come, soldier go, barracks go stay. That is it. That is literally how NVIDIA is. So they are in the gaming space, they are in the AI space, they are in the EV space. Why? Because what they produce, the materials, raw materials, the products that each of these um, sectors will need to thrive. So whether one company in that sector is thriving or not, whether one company is shutting down or not, because what they are providing is a service that is needed by all, they are bound to be in business. So what we have seen is that over the years, in the club, we have talked about NVIDIA so much. Like NVIDIA is like one of those stocks that is so strategically positioned and they are creating every other day that you should actually be a part of. You should actually have a stake in. It has been obvious for so long, right? Why? Because the gaming industry is about to blow up. Think about it. When we were younger, no, it was just kids that used to have Nintendo and blah blah blah. But now the gaming industry is a massive industry that is growing with adults, right? So it's a plus X industry. Nvidia is positioned there. Everybody is going green, trying to go into electric vehicles. Nvidia produces semiconductors and stuff for them. Your computers, Nvidia produces semiconductors and all those little things. I'm not even sure what they are called for computers too. For AI, NVIDIA is powering it. So think about it, guys. NVIDIA is logically the most valuable company in the world right now. Now, does it change? Yes, it does. But do they still have room to grow? Yes, they do. So think about it. Yeah, think about it. Now, these are kind of things to talk about in the Morning with Club. If you've not heard about us before, if it's your first time, then you need to find out more about us by visiting our website. Like I said, if you are listening in, please just say hi. Would like to shout you out. I see people are listening in, but just say hi and say where you're reaching out to us from, where you're watching from, and stuff. But yeah, check us out on the Money with Club, and also sign up letter so you get free gist from us. Yeah. And then let's go to Africa now. Coming out of Africa, we've talked a lot about Kenya, and how Kenya is really positioning themselves from both a branding perspective, PR perspective, and from an economic decision perspective to be one of the leading countries in Africa, right? But then last week, the news out of Kenya wasn't so fabulous. So the Kenyan government has is trying to sign some laws where they would increase taxes generally, right? Taxes on fuel, taxes on increase VAT, increase withholding tax, apply to slam taxes on some particular things that were not necessarily taxed before, things like that, increase capital gains tax and all. And the people are not here for it. Like the locals of Kenya are not here for it at all. And so there was a lot of protests. I mean, I saw some very interesting Gen Z pictures of people coming out to occupy parliament. It sounded really familiar, especially if you're a Nigerian. You can relate with that word occupy, right? And so they were protesting all of this week, and all. And I mean, it wasn't a good sight. Tear gas, blah 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 blah. But what really is the issue? First of all, let's pull back a little bit. Earlier in the year, Kenya issued Eurobond. That means they borrowed in dollars. And what they were trying to do was to raise financing to pay back their bond that is maturing this month. Now they raised a portion in the Eurobond market, and then a $500 million balance they took from the IMF. What does that mean? That means that whilst we're excited that Kenya is making good progress in terms of economic reforms, they actually were in a very tight position to pay back on that debt. And if you don't pay back, what is that? It's a default, and it's a very messy situation. So they had these structures where they had to meet some certain criteria to get loans from World Bank and IMF and co. Now, part of the requirements is that they have to increase taxes, they have to generate revenue locally. Now, there are two ways to generate revenue locally: either increase taxes or you widen your tax net by increasing the number of people that are being taxed. Now, the ideal thing is to increase the number of people that are being taxed, or broaden the number of things that can be taxed. But that is dependent on how broad and diverse your economy is. Now, if the economy is struggling, then what people generally tend to opt for is to increase the tax rate, which is what they've done. Now, of course, the locals are like, we're already struggling. Why are you doing this? It doesn't make any sense. Like, since you've come, you've been choking us. And I mean, I can understand where they are coming from, but I also understand where the government is coming from. So from an external perspective, I would say they will find a middle ground. There'll be some things they have actually pulled back on all the plans, and they're going to revisit them line by line. I dare say, listening governments, hopefully they will listen. Hopefully they will find a middle ground, so they can begin to progress. Because as a nation, especially one that is trying to stabilize economic wise, social unrest is like the worst thing ever. Like social unrest, why? Because people that would have traveled to your country, they will not come. People that want to invest, they will say, let's slow down. Are we sure these people can get past this? It can get messy quite quickly. So I think that's also why the government has said, okay, let's slow down. Let's negotiate. Let's see what we can take out. Let's see what we can adjust, so we can move forward about it. So that's that with Kenya. We wish them well in that journey. And then the next interesting thing was Zimbabwe is applying to enter the BRICS, to join the BRICS nations. What is BRICS? BRICS is basically a couple of countries that are trying to form and become an economic power as a bloc, like creating a bloc. I talked about Saudi Arabia and how Saudi Arabia is the S, so it stands for the names of 5 countries, right? And Saudi Arabia is the S at the end. So Zimbabwe wants to add a Z somewhere and all. But why do these things Russia, right? And Russia, India, they're trying to establish themselves as an economic power. Now they have different countries, they have different, and so what they are trying to do is to sort of some kind of they would have a common currency, and a force. A couple of those countries, Russia, for example, has oil. Arabia also has oil, and so they could. So those are the things they're going to bring to the table to become more of an economic power in the world. Right now, Zimbabwe says they want to apply for Zimbabwe. They would said quickly global audience, right? So bilateral trade agreements such that if they have a market for it, I would export guys. But that's how those things work. So Zimbabwe says they want to apply. I like it. Why? Because Zimbabwe is trying to wake up. That's what they're just saying, okay, we are waking up. And I think every African country really does need to wake up. Whether they will get admitted, we don't know. But it will be good because in the process of getting admitted, they would have to raise their own standards. They will cease to be a local champion or their own, a one-eyed man in the country of the blind is great. You get that kind of thing. So they would actually be forced to step up on their own. And so it's good. So whether they get admitted or not, that process in itself is good and all that. And I also do like the fact that people from other jurisdictions people like Africans are beginning to think of other jurisdictions than the West. It just makes you more diverse, right? And not dependent, right? And you can make local calls that you need to make. But yeah, that's that. We reached Zimbabwe well. I'm looking forward to how this will unfold. Finally, okay, before I jump on to finally, connect with us if you haven't already. The Money with Club and all our Ladili on all social media platforms. And then also sign up for our free newsletter if you haven't already. Yes. And then finally, we go to Nigeria. Nigerian news is quite interesting. The first one is about Nigerian box office. Now, if you notice, a lot of movies are just going straight to Netflix. Netflix is like the major buyer right now in Nigeria. But this news is saying that based on what we've done so far in H1, the chance that the total revenue from sale of tickets in Nigerian box office, meaning that people going to the cinema, is about 10 billion. Now, that is actually not much if you look at it in the bigger scheme of things. However, it's actually a lot of money, right? And if you think about it, if you are able to get 0.5% of that, that's about 50 million naira in a year, right? That is good money. Why am I talking about it? Because in the club, for example, we invested in movies. What happened? The video has gone off. Can you guys hear me? Sorry, I don't know why my video has gone off. But we've invested in video on demand companies that have gone to streaming platforms. And what we have done is that we've exited and they have been viable, right? So I dare say that whilst we are looking and saying things are not happening in the country, I'm trying to fix my laptop. I don't know what's happening. But whilst we can see that things are not going right or whatever, right? I think that there are opportunities that we can take advantage of, and we should not walk away from them. The movie industry in Nigeria is quite viable, I dare say, and I think that we should take advantage of it in any way that we can. We do that in the club. Sorry, I don't know what happened to my internet for a split second on my video, but I'm back. Technical drama. But anyways, yes, so the movie industry, I dare say, let's think about it if you haven't already. The creative industry, we know that the music guys have gone very, very far. Like they've gone so far, right? But the movies are coming up. They are coming up a whole lot. So we need to look at them more. And then people like Funke Akindele, they have done very well, like in the movie space. And I'm sure we will find more of those as we go along. I'm even liking this video. this angle is better, Abby. But anyways, last story. Yes, World Bank approved 2.25 billion support for Nigerian economic reforms. Guys, yes, the good thing about World Bank is the fact that World Bank and their support is the fact that it's almost like free money, but it's not really free because what they do is that they would give you requirements that there are some things you must meet up with, which is what they've done for Kenya, right? They're saying, okay, you need to raise taxes. We can't just be you can't just be what's it called? You can't just be taking money from us and you it won't cost you anything, right? So the question for Nigeria is at what cost? At what social cost? Have we not suffered enough? What do you think? But yeah, the unfortunate thing is that if you don't handle your economy very well, you'll be exposed, and that's really what's happening. Everybody sort of tries to run away from the World Bank and taking financing from them, but if you have to, you will. But the major thing is that we need to watch the economy. Where are those things being plugged into? If they're being plugged into something that you can plug into, then there's cash going around in that sector, so you can plug into it. What am I saying? If they are funding green energy, for example, it means that there's cash in green energy. What does that mean? It means that if you can find either to invest in green energy directly, like if you can do something in green energy directly, or you can invest in a company that's in that space that can tap into what they are going to fund, then you will make money. The idea is that you should follow the cash, follow the money. That's the most important thing. And if there's money running around in a particular sector, then you should jump at it. Anyways, this is today. This is what we talked about today. I hope it was useful. I see Angela Olua. Angela, I think I know Angela. Hi, Angela. I see Bolu also online. Yes, I was just saying yes. I'm not sure what she was responding to, but yes, I see you. Thank you guys so much. Every Saturday, I hope this was useful. And if you have questions, thoughts, drop it in the chat. We could talk about it, unpack it, either in a one-up video or next week. Thank you guys so much and have a beautiful weekend.